Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Scribner, your host of The Shrimp Tank with my co-host John Warner from Link Ventures, which is our sponsor today. Today we have an amazing guest. His name is Davinder Singh. We're going to bring him on in just a moment. Would like to remind all our listeners that you can find this show at theshrimptankpodcast.com/Boston. We're nationally syndicated on iHeart, 13 cities across the country. You can find this show and all previous shows basically anywhere that you can grab your podcast. We're also bringing this show to Canada pretty soon, which is going to be kind of fun because our guest right now is based out of Canada. With that said, I want to just real quickly talk about Link Ventures. John, tell us why Link is an interesting company.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Mark. And Mark, it's always great doing this show with you. Link Ventures is linking talented entrepreneurs with consumers who care about using data in our network. And Davinder is one of the most interesting people I know, a real thought leader, and I'm excited for our listeners to hear what he's doing and how he's at the forefront of commerce.
So, well, just real quickly for our listeners, this particular concept right now, for example, is about $170 billion industry in China. It's taking off. It's about 17% of e-commerce right now. It's a two-way e-commerce system that allows live stream brands, famous artists to have a B2B business to consumer type of scenario. It has amazing applications across the world, many different verticals. A lot that come to mind are, the live streaming and the partnerships that are out there. Live streaming has become really big in the past few years. And this particular company called Stage 10, which Davinder is the COO, and he's going to talk about his company and his technology stack. But it was a company that's been around for a little bit. COVID didn't accelerate this, but it definitely kind of stepped into that game. So Davinder, with that said, welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Mark and John. It's great to be here. Look forward to the chat.
Davinder, can you alluded to real quickly the kind of the growth in China with some of this technology and how it's been working and how big the space is, 170 billion. It's not so much around here right now. You folks are definitely a pioneer and accelerating that space, but could you talk a little bit about what Stage 10 does for our listeners and then maybe talk about some of the opportunity?
Definitely. So Stage 10 is a live streaming platform that allows us to create, distribute, and discover interactive and transactable content. The interactive and transactable content is such where, as a consumer, you're able to have a two-way conversation with the creator of any show. You're able to interact through polling, through tipping and donations, and best of all, even make a purchase while you're actually watching that show. It is a massive industry in Asia. Asia has been leading the charge on this one, growing starting from 2015. It has gotten to about 17% of gross merchandise value in China this year. There was a massive acceleration through COVID, but the trend has always been doing well. In North America, it's a fairly new trend. We are one of the leading companies leading the charge on this, and we see a huge opportunity for really changing the e-commerce experience. Today, when customers interact with e-commerce, it's a fairly lonely experience where you go through reviews, you are reading stuff that may be reliable, may not be reliable. What live commerce does is it brings back the human connection and interactivity to what commerce has traditionally been. You're able to communicate with the person on the other end, be it a seller, a creator, or a brand associate. And you're able to have that two-way conversation, be able to answer your questions, get excited about what you buy, and make it a much more of a social experience. And we think that's going to be the future of commerce and are super excited by how large the opportunity is.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Davinder, I was at Zootopia in 2016 before Zoom was a verb. Is all the technology there for this? And if it's all there, what does this trend say about the psychology of the consumer?
Yeah, we're now at a point where all the technology is there. And the technology involved in bringing this together is one, a live streaming production tool, So Stage 10 has a tool called the Stage 10 Pro Studio, which allows you to produce live streams by bringing in streams from anywhere in the world through any device. So a person could be on a mobile phone or on their laptop, and their stream can be bought into a browser-based software, and we can produce a live show, which can have the commerce aspects. What Stage 10 also has is a video player. We call it the Rosie player, which is interactive and transactable. What that means is while you're watching the show, you're able to interact with the guest through that player itself. So if the host throws up a poll, you can answer that poll while watching that show versus an experience where it shows up as a separate window. Similarly, while you're watching that show, if you want to make a purchase for an item that is being showcased, you're able to interact with it within the player itself, and you never have to leave the show. So unlike a traditional experience where you're watching in one place and then have to leave the show, this brings it all together. And we have built a patented technology to be able to service that. And through our integration with Shopify, it's an entirely seamless experience where the retailer doesn't have to do much additional setup in terms of setting up separate logistics or payments, others. We take all the features from Shopify, and you're able to quickly get started.
So
the
it's like
technology exists.
2.0.
Yeah, good, John. Zoom, the overtalk. So, by and large, everything, well, not everything, but most everything in e-commerce right now is a one-way experience. So very much what you're saying is this technology stack is making this a two-way experience where you are interacting. You can build the creative component, which you can, an artist or a brand, I don't know, say Gillette wants to come to you and they're doing a commercial for the Super Bowl and someone's watching. I'm just trying to give our listeners an idea of like how they actually leverage this technology. And maybe this is not correct, but let's just say the Super Bowl is going on right now and, they have like a razor or something like that. Instead of that person going outside or onto a laptop, they can click on like a hyperlink or get some information about that and then buy it right there without having to leave what they're doing, the video or whatnot. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great example. I'll just take the Super Bowl example to play it out a bit more. But let's take an event like a Super Bowl. What you could have before a Super Bowl is a virtual tailgate, where you could bring in different players and experts into a live stream and conduct a show about the game that's going to happen. During that show, you could feature different aspects and different folks. You could feature merchandising. You could have a polling aspect where you could put out a poll to say who's going to win the Super Bowl, and then the audience can interact with it. But you can create an entire experience pre-it where multiple streams are being brought together. What you could also do is during the Super Bowl itself, you could run a separate event where different folks are talking about the game, maybe doing a play-by-play action. Our technology allows you to bring in pre-recorded videos, images and everything into the show. So you can also make it play-by-play, and all of it with that, you can just integrate merchandising. So if you have sponsors or you're talking about a certain aspect of the game and want to be able to sell it, whatever you're talking about, you can sell it at the same time.
So if I wanted to buy that Patrick Mahomes shirt, if he's winning the game right there, instead of going to like NFL.com, I want to buy that Patrick Mahomes shirt, I'll be able to do that inside the whole experience.
Absolutely, without ever leaving the show and not missing any other part of the show.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, John, go ahead, please.
Yeah, what's interesting here is, we talk a lot about the future of work with the pandemic, but I think the future of commerce, what is the pandemic accelerated here that people want a human connection to this kind of interactivity?
So there are a couple of things we think have been accelerated through COVID. One is the technology kind of already existed in terms of being able to do live commerce. It was already getting to a stage where it was ready. But what COVID did was, one, as you saw, e-commerce achieved what it was, the pace at which it was growing over a decade, it achieved it in 1 year. And I think just bringing all that spend from the physical stores into e-commerce was super helpful. Now that everything is happening in within the online universe, customers do want that human interactivity back. One of the big reasons of going to a store is you were able to talk to that sales associate, or you were just able to feel a bit more of a social connection with it. And what live commerce does is bring back that aspect to commerce. So it's taking the best of both the worlds in some ways, the social connection that existed with physical commerce and the convenience that exists with e-commerce, and delivering it in a new way.
Davinder, we talked about a long time ago, like in .com era, where they talked about this concept called convergence. And now with your technology and the rollout and increasing rollout of 5G, whether it be cars and all that, is this kind of like the perfect, I wouldn't say storm, but opportunity where, video, the phones are getting faster. It's a more enjoyable experience for the most part. It's still in its nascent stages with the technology on the mobile side, but it seems to me, as video, like what John alluded to, COVID, 5G, that it is more of a convergence than we've ever kind of experienced.
Absolutely. So as we've seen across multiple trends, and even looking at the numbers of how much video is being consumed during the pandemic, but I think that's going to stay beyond it as well. Video, we think, is going to be the future. What we're now finding is not only the convergence of technology, but we also think a convergence of content and commerce. You're seeing that in the growth of how much influencers are playing a role in terms of driving purchasing behavior. You're seeing that in terms of how much they impact our social life through pop culture and other aspects, right? So we think the importance of content creators is going to continue to grow. It has been pretty significant in the last decade. However, what has been missing for those creators is an ability to monetize their influence. They have been beholden to the ad-based model, which doesn't actually give much value to the content creators. Whereas what we think with this technology, where you can sell your own merchandising, you can do tipping and donations, the value will go increasingly to creators, thus bringing in more content, better content, and more creators onto the fold, because they will be able to monetize their creations much better.
Hey, Davinder, I mentioned QVC before. I'm curious with Cameo, the streaming networks, creating these kind of walled gardens, and even Clubhouse. What are some trends from those three, events that you think inform the business that you're leading?
Yeah, so those are, so we kind of see the same trends. We do see, I look at Clubhouse and Cameo are different correctly, and to be able to monetize what they do as well. We kind of fit into the same realm. Our model we are taking is a twofold model. One is we are providing the technology and the tools to let everyone participate in that experience. But then second, in the future, we do debate and have plans about building a network where people can interact, watch interactive and transactable content, right? So one destination where they can watch it. We would want everyone to be able to produce that content, because we think the more content you have, the better the experience for the viewer. But that's how we are approaching it. So all these trends are consistent in my mind with everything we are doing. We think the market opportunity is huge and massive, and you're going to find different plays at it.
My co-host has this famous saying that he calls it the technology graveyard, right, John? Now, I have a couple of questions. Are you oftentimes with some of this technology and video, and all these different technology stacks, someone like has to invent a standard somehow, usually. Do you see, like with the competition, whether it be like Roku, Apple, Google, how do you kind of defend yourself against, the bigger names that have potentially bigger budgets? Or is there a standard? Like, how do you view this partnership to be, kind of not, like John mentioned, walled off with some of these other technologies?
Yeah, great question. So our technology is built on standards that are recognized and are being adopted widely. So our video player, for example, is built on WebRTC, which is a much more versatile technology compared to flash-based players of the previous era. That is what enables us to have the interactive and the transactable content. Similarly, our Pro Studio, which is a tool that we use to bring in live streams from multiple places, is built as a browser-based product. And the reason for that is so that anyone from anywhere is able to get in and use the tool, and you need no special installation to make it happen. So we've been cognizant of the fact that we want to build the technology in the way that it stays current with other platforms and not bringing in a whole new different standard of our own.
And maybe you could speak about partnerships. Like, how do you see you, because, I think you obviously supply or can create content and help in that realm, which is very different. But Apple, Netflix, these people are content creators as well. How do you see, those interactions or those partnerships evolving?
Yeah, we actually treat all of them as partners and potential partners. So our work with Shopify allowed us to create integrated experience where you can now purchase directly through the player, and it's a much more seamless experience for all retailers and consumers. Similarly, we have a partnership with YouTube where we're helping their creators get access to better live streaming technology. We have also partnered with YouTube to produce some of the leading live content that was produced in 2020. So for example, the MrBeast Rock, Paper, Scissors show, which at that time was the most watched live show, like most watched as in the most number of concurrent viewers. That was produced on Stage 10 as well. So we've been relying heavily on partnerships, and we think there are a number of use cases that can be done over here, and the partnership model is potentially the right way to go about doing it.
So someone comes to you saying they have a big budget to create a sci-fi film 100 years in the future, and they say, tell us where commerce is going. What do we have to render? What would you say, given what you're doing and where you'd like your company to be a major player and become the next juggernaut?
Yeah. So in my view, and Stage 10's view, is like commerce is going to come, technology is going to advance to a point where all the elements of human interactivity are going to come back to commerce. And the winners are going to be where it's because consumer experience, I mean, it's an off-stated term, but consumer experience is what's going to trump everything, except now the experience is going to be very different and advanced. The way I think of it is commerce has gone through 3 stages of evolution. First, you had the local stores where you could go buy the TV that you wanted. It was an experience where you could only get the inventory that was in that store, and you could only go there when the store was open. What the era of Amazon and e-commerce did was made all the inventory available to you as a consumer and at any time, anywhere. But you no longer had that benefit of being able to speak to that salesperson who would give you their guidance, who would tell you why something is better than the other, and kind of lend their expertise. You were left to kind of figure out all that on your own. A lot of information, but difficult to digest that information. So a lonely experience. Then the phase that we see happening as the next phase is one where you bring those back. So there'll be different mechanisms in which it will evolve. I think there'll be different ways in which the human interactivity will come back in. I think there'll be growth in guided selling, where there'll be one-to-one selling for the more complex products. They will be more of the convergence of content and commerce, kind of what we are doing, where entertainers or brands and retailers are going to produce shows and sell along with it. I think there'll be greater focus on education, because you can now produce content where you can educate the customer more about your product, not always trying to drive a sale, but building a long-term relationship. You can bring in different aspects, right? So Michael's, for example, at the start of COVID, started doing a classroom where they would do an arts and crafts classroom every Wednesday at noon. And it's bringing back the experience to it. It no longer is a transactional aspect where I'm only there to buy, or I only go to a store to buy. You can go there to learn, to consume content, and buying becomes a part of that experience. So we think that closing of the loop where buying is an outcome of everything you're doing is how commerce is going to proceed.
Mm-hmm. Davinder, just hearing you speak, I think of, there's a time where people would window shop. If they want that TV, they would look through the window and long for it. And then I grew up in New York City. Crazy Eddie's went bankrupt, but there was a price tag on each product. And I learned this, that if you have the certain secret number, you could see where the sales guy could be negotiated down to. And that was, very transactional. You talk to a salesperson, but I think, Apple this week was talking about it was maybe a $3,000 piece of hardware where you can do VR, AR, XR. I think as we think of the way we interact with one another, right now our phones are isolating us. But what you're doing with influencers, you can create a more personal experience with what we want to purchase and inform people and maybe it could connect people. So I think, how does the influencer win in this model? Does the whole physics change of the role that they play?
Yeah. So in terms of influencers, we think like today, if they're doing an ad-based or a referral-based model, most of them work in an affiliate model, which depending on the segment you're working in, you're going to make like anywhere from 2% to 12%, depending on what vertical the influencer is working in. What this does is two ways. One, it significantly shifts the power of the economics. It can shift it to the influencer. Second, the influencer is now able to create a much richer experience, right? You're not just, in today's experience, you produce an Instagram video and you say, go shop at X, Y, and Z website to purchase. And then there's a reliance on attribution technology and a whole host of ad tech to be able to link that video experience to the purchase that actually happened. Whereas going forward, the influencer exactly knows how well they're performing. They would have data at their fingertips in terms of what aspects of the show and what aspects of how they interact with the customer spike purchases. So, because you can now look at per minute or per second purchases when consumers are actually going and interacting. So it'll bring back a lot of the data and the power back to the influencer versus simply relying on a host of ad tech and attribution technology today.
To build on John's question, Facebook literally threw up in the past few weeks about Apple's, kind of Xing out their ability to target-based ad or the privacy type stuff that's been going on. So there's been some change, kind of almost a clash of the titans with the ad-based model and pricing. Does your two-way e-commerce, maybe there's a third way, but I like the two-way because I look at e-commerce right now as being one way, and you're obviously doing it at least two. But does the privacy game influence or impact you in any negative or positive way?
Not in a direct approach, because what our approach is, a consumer or a retailer goes live or a creator goes live, and they are then able to bring their audience to that live show and then interact in a two-way mechanism. In some ways, I do think Google and Facebook are part of that ecosystem because they play a critical role where you're able to inform your audiences that, hey, I'm going to go live at this time on Friday, right? And so there's a part in the role that they could play. Now, obviously, brands that have significantly advanced email management programs and direct connections with their consumers would not rely on it as much. But outside of it, we think of it as a complete, it's an ecosystem, right? Like it's another way of creating content. So at least the way I think of it is it's adding more arrows to the quiver of how you can engage with the consumer. I think content marketing, which is a video on demand content where you can just go watch the video at any time, will also continue to say, by no means, at least the way I imagine the world, does live replace video on demand. But what it does is it fulfills different purposes. Video on demand helps you go learn about stuff when you want to go watch it as a consumer. So if you're buying a home renovation product where you need more research, you go watch the video when you want to watch it. Whereas what live can do is it can help you entertain, it can help you answer questions that video on demand cannot do, and it can help you just talk to an associate maybe, right? So I think they can be complementary. It becomes an expansion of what the content marketing strategy is.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you disrupting here? Like, is the agency model threatened by this? The folks that represent the celebrities, are they threatened by this? Like, who are you disrupting here?
In some ways, we don't think we're disrupting people fundamentally out of their business models. What we're doing is we're giving them another tool to reach their customer. So I think what we're disrupting is really from the consumer point of view, where we're giving the consumer and the retailer a new way to engage with each other. Now, we would love for agencies to actually use this as part of their pitches to retailers and say, look, not only will we manage your digital media spend, part of that package will also be managing your live content and how we produce a show. Similarly, there may be some technology that gets built along with it where ad tech may say, look, you have your digital media spend on Google and Facebook and you have live commerce. Let us help you figure out what is the right mix in terms of spend and attribution that needs to happen. So we think of this more of an evolution of live commerce is now another tool that you need to add to your toolkit simply because it's going to be massive. Massive.
Davinder's actually went to Harvard. We're in Boston here. So, but it is interesting though, if you look at just take China, for example, 17% of the e-commerce, they obviously have very rigid privacy standards. Some of the changes that I just mentioned with Apple and all that, it seems like this is a way that might overcome the advertiser who gets limited information on their ad spend, or it's been restricted or been siloed a little bit. But I guess, I don't know if it's a fair comparison between China and that recent change and some of those privacy things here, but if it's working there, it would seem that brands would gravitate a lot more to your concept, and it could be a big growth engine as privacy starts to get figured out here. We're not like China, but there's some dynamic there that obviously is happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of that that can happen where the ad-based model in many ways is a two-step model where you're engaged as an advertiser, you're engaging with Facebook or Google, so social media platforms, who then engage with the consumer. All the data sits with the social media platform, right? And you're kind of beholden to, and increasingly with AI and other things, you're beholden to the toolkit that exists over there. I think with this technology and with this framework, you kind of get that interactivity or the direct connection back. So you could also use this technology to get early feedback on your product, right? Because if you have a new product, you could say you're going to do a launch show. Before you send that product into mass production, you're going to host a show. You're going to talk about your latest and upcoming product, and not only see how many consumers buy, but also be able to kind of interact with the consumers through chat. You can ask them a question, they can respond back. You could do polling, and you could see what customer feedback you get back. So we think with this, you're going to be able to do new things that you can't do in a three-step model that social media does, because it literally is a one-way communication, right? I'm showing you an ad, and the only way you can interact with me is you come back and watch that. Based on that ad, you come and interact with my website. But this becomes more dynamic. It becomes more versatile.
Yeah. So when Elon Musk threw that ball through his pickup truck and had to check Twitter for the feedback, you could circle this off either for public view or private view for groups, and you can get real-time feedback that way too. It can either be private or public. Is that how it could be used?
The use cases can evolve in that manner. So there's nothing that prevents it from being a public and a private use case. Our most current use case is designed around a one-to-many, where you as a host do a show and then it's being consumed in public. But the making it private and closing out is a simple evolution of the model that can be achieved.
Hey, Davinder, you went to school in Singapore, then were at Harvard Business School. You were one of the leaders at Wayfair at an interesting time. You're now in Canada. What are some things from your past that are kind of informing you on what the future holds for business?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very, I would say, lucky and thankful for some of the choices made and the opportunities that came in front of me. My advantage has been you've been a technology coder and a developer when I first started out of an engineering school in Singapore, went to business school, and then spent a fair amount of time at McKinsey working in financial institutions and fintech. Wayfair gave me a great purview into e-commerce and marketing, but also given my technology and data background, understanding how technology and data is being applied for ads and advertising. I think using all that, my background of understanding of product, data, technology, business, it kind of shows to me how it's not a it's not a single way story where I think it's like having understood this technology and what it takes um, to get it done. I just feel the era of relying on ads and attribution and all of that has reached its peak. It's not that it would go away, but it has reached its peak. What I also see is this era of working on reviews has kind of also reached its peak, and we are going to come back
Well,
to
and
the
not to
growth in
forget,
AR.
you have AI, you have chatbots. I mean, how much news is going to be produced by AI, and are the reviews even real? I think that people are going to crave a human connection.
Absolutely. That is exactly what we think of, right? Like where that era of reading and trying to decipher through information is going to go. With the growth in AR, VR, and live streaming, all of these technologies are driving towards human connection. And in some ways, it's like, it feels like the most natural evolution in my mind, right? Where we saw efficiency come in from a classic old technology. We saw, or an old school way, pre-technology era, we saw a way of how technology added efficiency. But now that I think we have peaked in terms of efficiency, you kind of want back. Like I don't think the world will ever work where we'll just say human connections don't matter or social connections don't matter. But having achieved that efficiency, now the technology is being applied to bring that real world experience back into the virtual world.
Mhm. So with that said, Davinder, we want to thank you very much. We'd love to have you back as this technology starts to go out. We'll be following you for sure with some of the news stories and all that. Your collection of experience, clearly you're in the right spot to have that convergence again with your skill set and all that. For our listeners, just would like to remind them, we'd love to get your followership on the shrimptankpodcast.com/Boston. Link Ventures is an amazing firm that will be in the bio too. You can learn about all the amazing portfolio companies that they are running and doing some great things there. Davinder, what is the best way to get a hold of you or to learn more about Stage 10?
To learn more about Stage 10, I would encourage you to go to stage10.tv, and you can reach me on LinkedIn.
Great. Well, with that said, we want to thank you again for taking your time to tell us about your technology and the evolution and the two-way e-commerce, which I really thought was amazing. But thanks again, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you. It was great speaking with you, Mark and John. Thank you.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.